As the story reveals, Ramona was a 21-year-old college student known for her beauty, charm, and popularity. She was admired by many people on campus and had become one of the most recognized students at her college. Because of her beauty and popularity, many of the male students at college hoped for a chance to date Ramona. Among them was Eddie, a quiet and timid young man who had admired her for a long time from a distance. One day, during a college party, Eddie finally gathered the courage to confess his feelings to her. However, when the moment arrived and he found himself standing near Ramona, his nerves took over. He became so anxious that he could barely speak, let alone tell her how he felt. Seeing his struggle, his friend Sonny approached him and tried to boost his confidence. Sonny encouraged Eddie not to give up, reminding him that he would never know the outcome unless he found the courage to talk to her. Sonny looked at Eddie and said, "If you really like her, what are you so afraid of?" To help him relax, he handed Eddie a glass of wine and encouraged him to ask Ramona to dance. The extra confidence helped. Eddie walked over to Ramona and started dancing, although his moves were a little awkward. Instead of laughing at him, Ramona found his shy and genuine personality surprisingly charming and decided to dance with him. As they spent time together, Eddie suddenly felt the need to use the restroom. However, when he went inside, he found it extremely dirty and immediately turned around without using it. Just then, Ramona approached the restroom entrance. Embarrassed by the condition of the place and not wanting her to go inside, Eddie quickly stopped her and suggested that they find another restroom somewhere else instead. Suddenly, another student rushed into the restroom, noticed the mess inside, and immediately assumed that Eddie was responsible. He called over his friends, and before long, several people were laughing and making jokes at Eddie's expense. Despite having nothing to do with it, he became the target of their teasing and felt deeply embarrassed. Feeling humiliated, Eddie left the party and went home with his mother. The experience only made him more self-conscious and nervous around other people. The following evening, Eddie attended another party where Ramona happened to be as well. Knowing how much he liked her, his friends kept encouraging him to go talk to her and make a move. However, despite their support, Eddie still couldn't gather the confidence he needed and remained too shy to approach her. Meanwhile, Ramona's friends told her that Eddie had a crush on her and that he had never been in a relationship before. Amused by this, Ramona reacted with surprise and playfully challenged her friends, claiming she could easily get his attention. She then approached Eddie and asked him to dance. As they spent time together, the atmosphere became more personal, and she invited him to talk with her in a private room. Once they were alone, Ramona openly acknowledged that she knew about his feelings for her and suggested that this was the opportunity he had been hoping for. However, Eddie remained true to himself. Despite his feelings for Ramona, he explained that he was not comfortable rushing into anything and preferred to take things slowly. His response showed that he valued genuine connection and wanted any relationship to develop naturally rather than being driven by pressure or expectations. "There's still plenty of time for that," Eddie said. "Before anything else, I just want to get to know you better and spend some meaningful time together." His response caught Ramona off guard. Feeling rejected and embarrassed, she quickly got dressed and stormed out of the room. When she rejoined her friends, they realized things had not gone the way she expected. Soon, rumors began spreading, and once again Eddie became the target of jokes and teasing from other students. The following day, Eddie was at home with his mother. She had learned that he had been bullied and even beaten up at college. Concerned for her son, she comforted him and gently asked what had happened. Eddie opened up to her and admitted that he had fallen in love with a girl named Ramona. He explained that all he really wanted was the chance to spend time with her and get to know her better. Hearing this, his mother smiled warmly. She was happy that her son had found someone he genuinely cared about and encouraged him not to lose hope. Eddie had always struggled with shyness, so his mother reassured him that she would help him build the confidence to talk to Ramona properly. The next morning, Eddie told his friends about the conversation. Instead of supporting him, they criticized his decision, insisting that he had missed a perfect opportunity. They argued that he needed to be more confident and take action if he truly wanted to be with Ramona. Some of them also warned him that Sonny had recently been showing interest in Ramona and suggested that he should be careful if he hoped to win her heart. Taking their advice seriously, Eddie became worried. The following day at college, he approached Sonny and directly warned him to stay away from Ramona. The confrontation created tension between the two friends, as Eddie feared that Sunny might become a rival for the girl he cared about. But Sunny refused to listen, and the disagreement quickly turned into a heated argument. Just then, Ramona arrived. Still upset about the events of the previous night, she decided to hurt Eddie by accepting Sunny's proposal right in front of him. The sight crushed Eddie. Heartbroken, he tried to stop her and explain how he felt, but Ramona ignored him. Desperate to make people understand what had really happened between them the night before, Eddie revealed the private conversation they had shared. However, Ramona immediately denied his claims and accused him of making everything up. With everyone watching, Eddie was left looking dishonest and embarrassed. Sunny became furious, believing that Eddie was lying about Ramona, and confronted him. Unable to defend himself against the accusations and the growing crowd, Eddie found himself completely alone. The people around him sided with Ramona, and what had started as a simple crush turned into one of the most humiliating moments of his life. The next day, Eddie and his mother leave for a summer vacation and check into a hotel. While at the reception desk, Eddie notices a beautiful young woman named Annie who works there. The moment he sees her, he is immediately captivated. Later, curious to learn more about her, Eddie asks the bartender about Annie. The bartender responds negatively, warning him to stay away from her and speaking poorly about her character. However, Eddie senses that the bartender is being dishonest and refuses to accept his claims without evidence. Determined to form his own opinion, Eddie approaches Annie and awkwardly starts a conversation with her. His nervousness makes the interaction a little clumsy, causing Annie to laugh. For a brief moment, Eddie becomes self-conscious, fearing that she is mocking him the way others had before. But that isn't the case at all. Annie actually finds his sincerity and innocence refreshing. Rather than judging him, she is charmed by his genuine personality. Enjoying their conversation, she surprises Eddie by inviting him to take a walk along the beach with her later that night. Later, Eddie and Annie take a walk together along the beach and continue getting to know each other. During their conversation, Eddie asks about the bartender. Annie explains that the bartender had once asked her out, but after she turned him down, he began spreading rumors about her out of resentment. As they spend more time together, they open up about their personal lives. Annie mentions that she already has a boyfriend, but she enjoys Eddie's genuine and innocent personality, which is why she agreed to spend time with him. Wanting to have some fun, she challenges him to sing a song. Eddie gladly accepts, singing and even dancing to make her smile. The two continue talking late into the night, growing closer and sharing a memorable evening together. By the next morning, Eddie is still fast asleep when his mother comes to wake him up and reminds him that it is time for them to leave. Before leaving, Eddie decides he wants to introduce Annie to his mother, so he takes her toward the reception area. On the way, they unexpectedly cross paths with the bartender. Eddie, still upset about the rumors he had heard, mocks him by implying that he spent the night with Annie. The bartender immediately fires back with a cruel comment, claiming he spent the night with Eddie's mother. The insult hits Eddie hard, leaving him silent and shaken as doubt briefly creeps into his mind about his mom. When Eddie and Annie finally reach the reception, Annie is nowhere to be found. Worried, Eddie goes outside to look for her and discovers her standing alone, visibly upset. When he asks what happened, Annie explains that someone reported seeing Eddie leaving her room, which violated hotel rules. Because of this misunderstanding, she has been fired and forced to leave immediately. Eddie begs her not to go, but Annie gently refuses, explaining that she will be returning to her boyfriend. Both of them share a sad farewell and embrace before parting ways. Eddie is left silent, struggling to hold back his emotions. On the drive back, his mother asks who he will love now. Eddie calmly replies that once he returns to college, he will try to speak to Ramona again, hoping for another chance at love. Suddenly, Eddie receives a message from Ramona saying that Sunny had hurt her and asking where Eddie is, urging him to come quickly. Shocked and concerned, Eddie asks his mother to turn the car toward Ramona's house. Although his mother is upset by the sudden decision, they still head there. When Eddie arrives, he is confused and mistakenly assumes Ramona's sister is her mother, asking where her daughter is. The sister corrects him and explains who she really is. Eddie then goes inside to meet Ramona and is devastated to see visible injuries on her face. She appears emotionally broken and expresses deep resentment towards Sunny for what happened. In an emotional moment, Ramona begins to open up to Eddie and even hints at wanting to start something new with him. However, Eddie gently stops her and tells her the truth, that he has met someone else named Annie and now has a girlfriend. Ramona doesn't believe Eddie, especially since he doesn't even have Annie's contact details. She mocks him, implying that he is making the whole thing up. Hurt and frustrated, Eddie finally snaps and tells her that she is a terrible person and that he doesn't need her anymore. With that, he walks away. In the following scene, Eddie is visibly upset and emotionally drained. His mother notices his sadness and encourages him to reach out to Annie. The problem is that Eddie doesn't have her number. He tries searching for her on social media, but cannot find any trace of her. Determined not to lose her again, he eventually manages to obtain her contact information through the hotel. He calls Annie and tells her that he is coming to her city to see her, asking if she would be willing to meet him. Annie agrees. That night, they meet at a club and begin dancing together. As they spend time on the dance floor, they grow closer, and Annie believes that Eddie is genuinely happy being with her. After dancing at the club, Eddie and Annie go off to spend time together privately inside the club's restroom area. However, some girls outside become impatient and call for them to come out. When they don't respond, a bouncer eventually intervenes and forces Eddie out of the situation. Later, Annie takes Eddie to her room and looks after him, showing care and concern for his emotional state. During their conversation, Eddie asks when she plans to tell her boyfriend about their situation. Annie explains that her boyfriend is wealthy and influential, and she fears losing her comfortable life if she confronts him. Hearing this deeply hurts Eddie, and he quietly leaves, feeling betrayed and emotionally exhausted. The next day at college, Eddie sits with his friend, still thinking about Ramona and everything that has happened. Suddenly, he notices other students staring at him and mocking him. It is revealed that Ramona has spread rumors about him, twisting the situation and making him the subject of ridicule. Eddie becomes upset and tries to defend himself, but no one believes him. His friend tries to comfort him, assuring him that he knows Eddie's true feelings and that the accusations are not real, but the damage to his reputation has already been done. Later, when Eddie returns home, he finds his friend Carla waiting for him. She listens as he opens up about everything that has happened, the misunderstandings, the rumors, and the emotional pressure he has been under. Carla tries to comfort him and reassures him that things will eventually settle down. As they continue talking, Eddie becomes emotionally vulnerable and their bond grows stronger through honest conversation and shared support. However, Carla later warns him that people at college are beginning to misinterpret his closeness with her and spreading rumors about his identity. She advises him to distance himself to avoid further judgment from others. This deeply affects Eddie and leaves him feeling misunderstood and isolated. Hurt and frustrated, he begins to change his mindset and decides to prove himself to everyone who doubted him, especially Ramona. He transforms his appearance and gains a new level of confidence, quickly attracting attention from many students who are impressed by his new look. When Eddie meets Ramona again, he deliberately presents himself with confidence, telling her she still looks beautiful as ever. Ramona responds positively, complimenting his transformation. Eddie then asks her to meet him later, and she agrees. Afterward, Eddie returns to Carla and calmly tells her that whatever happened between them should be left in the past, suggesting they should remain just friends moving forward. She agrees. Feeling still hurt from everything that happened with Sonny, Eddie decides to take revenge on him. With the help of a friend, he sends Carla a gift and a letter under Sonny's name, asking her to be his girlfriend. Since it is Valentine's Day, Carla becomes excited and believes the gesture is real. She goes to Sonny, happily telling him that they are now in a relationship. Sonny is confused and irritated, and he harshly insults her, saying that no one would ever want to date her. Hurt and angry, Carla reacts strongly and confronts him physically, leading to a chaotic scene. After this, Eddie shifts his focus back to Ramona and asks her out on a date that same evening. She agrees. That night, Ramona dresses beautifully and meets Eddie. He takes her to a lighthouse, a place he often visits when he wants to be alone and find peace. He tells her that whenever life becomes overwhelming, he comes there to clear his thoughts, but today is different because she is with him. He calls her the most beautiful girl in his world and confesses his love for her. Hearing this, Ramona feels deeply moved and admits that no one has ever made her feel as cared for and loved as Eddie does. They share a kiss, and afterward Eddie invites Ramona to his place. Ramona is initially hesitant, worried about how others might judge her, but Eddie reassures her that she can trust him and that he respects her boundaries. Feeling safe with him, she agrees, and they spend time together, gradually growing closer and enjoying a peaceful period in their relationship. However, things take an unexpected turn one day when Eddie receives a message from Annie. In the message, Annie tells him to bring her favorite flowers and meet her within an hour, explaining that she is coming to his city. Seeing the message, Eddie becomes anxious and conflicted. Without fully explaining the situation, he abruptly leaves Ramona, telling her that something urgent has come up. He rushes off to meet Annie, leaving Ramona confused and uncertain about what is happening. When Eddie meets Annie, they greet each other warmly and share a kiss, clearly happy to see one another again. He then brings her to his home, where Annie quickly forms a friendly and comfortable bond with Eddie's mother. Meanwhile, Eddie receives a call from Ramona, who is upset that he didn't show up as expected. She insists that he still needs to bring her flowers that night and meet her. Feeling pressured, Eddie tries to make an excuse, saying he has to go out with a relative and won't be available. However, Ramona continues to insist that he must come no matter what. At that moment, Eddie notices Annie walking toward him, searching for him. Panicking, he abruptly ends the call, caught between the two situations. Now overwhelmed and confused about whether he should stay with Ramona or continue things with Annie, Eddie seeks advice from his mother. However, she remains neutral and does not give him a clear answer, leaving Eddie even more uncertain about what decision to make next. Eventually, Eddie makes the decision to end things with Ramona and choose to be with Annie. That night, he spends time with Annie, and the two grow closer as he commits to his new relationship. However, around midnight, Ramona unexpectedly calls Eddie outside. When he goes to meet her, she tries to talk him into reconsidering their relationship. Eddie listens, but calmly tells her that although he once cared for her, he no longer finds the emotional fulfillment he is looking for with her. Ramona pleads with him to stay, but Eddie remains firm in his decision. He says goodbye and returns inside, leaving her behind. 2 years later, Eddie has moved on with his life. He has become a writer and is now living peacefully and happily with Annie, finally finding stability and emotional balance in his relationship. After a long time, Eddie meets Ramona again at a club. They greet each other and catch up on how life has changed. Ramona tells him she is now engaged to a wealthy man, and at first she speaks positively about her new life. However, as the conversation continues, she becomes more honest and admits that her relationship is not emotionally fulfilling. She reveals that despite her status and engagement, she has never truly felt love the way Eddie once made her feel. She confesses that part of her still wishes things had gone differently between them. Hearing this, Eddie becomes emotionally conflicted and begins to sympathize with her again, reopening feelings he thought he had moved past. Their conversation leaves him shaken and uncertain about his choices. Later, when Eddie returns home, he notices that Annie is not there. Shortly after, he receives a message from Ramona. In it, she reveals that she has told Annie everything about their past and suggests that she refuses to let Eddie move on and be happy without consequences. The message leaves Eddie stunned, realizing that the situation has escalated once again and that his past decisions are now catching up with him in a painful way. At that moment, Eddie is overwhelmed by a rush of inner thoughts and regret. He begins to reflect on his choices and realizes that if he had never gone back to Ramona, his life with Annie might have remained stable and happy. Suddenly, the story shifts back in time to the moment at the party when Eddie was still nervous about approaching Ramona and Sonny was encouraging him. But this time, the outcome is different. Eddie gathers confidence and firmly rejects Sonny's interference, symbolically breaking the chain of events that led him down the wrong path. This change suggests an alternate timeline where Eddie chooses a different future, one where he remains with Annie and avoids the emotional chaos that followed. With that final shift and decisive moment, the story comes to a close. This story shows how one decision can completely change the direction of a person's life. Eddie's journey highlights the impact of emotional confusion, peer pressure, and impulsive choices, especially when they are driven by insecurity rather than clarity. It also reflects how misunderstandings and pride can destroy genuine connections, while honesty and emotional maturity are what ultimately lead to stability and peace. Another important lesson is that chasing validation from the wrong people can make you lose what truly matters. Eddie only finds clarity when he realizes the value of genuine love and emotional peace over drama and validation. If this story made you think, take it as a reminder to choose wisely, stay true to your values, and don't let pressure or confusion decide your future. Sometimes the right choice is not the most exciting one, but it is the one that brings peace. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more emotional movie story breakdowns like this.